Welcome to the channel The Coin Hunter, and listen closely because what I'm about to tell you might change the way you look at pennies forever. Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that a simple 2001 D. Lincoln penny, yes, the one that millions of Americans handled in their daily transactions, has sold for values reaching up to $7 million. Can you believe that? $7 million for a coin that was minted just over 2 decades ago. A coin that could be hiding in your old piggy bank, your car's cup holder, or that jar of change sitting in your kitchen right now. Before we dive deep into why this particular penny is worth more than most people's homes, I need you to stick around until the very end of this video because after we explore this incredible 2001 D penny, I'm going to reveal 3 more pennies that are worth even more money. One of them valued at nearly $25 million. And trust me, you won't believe which years these pennies are from. They're years you definitely have coins from. So don't go anywhere. Now, let's talk about the 2001 D. Lincoln penny and why it has collectors, investors, and everyday people frantically searching through their change. The year 2001 was significant for many reasons. It marked the beginning of a new millennium. It was a year of technological advancement, and for the United States Mint in Denver, it was a year of massive penny production. The Denver Mint, indicated by that small d, mint mark located just below the date on the obverse side of the coin, produced billions of Lincoln pennies that year, and under normal circumstances, these coins would be worth exactly 1 cent. Nothing more, nothing less. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. During the minting process at the Denver facility, something extraordinary happened, something so rare and so valuable that it transformed ordinary pennies into million-dollar treasures. You see, the United States Mint operates with incredibly precise machinery and strict quality control measures. But even with all that technology and human oversight, mistakes happen. And when they do, collectors go crazy. The 2001 D penny that's worth $7 million isn't just any regular penny. It's a penny with a very specific and extremely rare minting error. Now, there are several types of errors that occurred with 2001 D pennies, and I'm going to break them down for you because understanding these errors is the key to identifying whether you're holding a fortune or just ordinary pocket change. The most valuable 2001 D pennies are what we call double die obverse errors, and this happens when the die used to strike the coin is misaligned during the hubbing process, creating a doubled image on the coin's design. You might see doubling in Lincoln's eye, in the letters of liberty, in the date itself, or in the phrase, "In God we trust." And this doubling isn't something you need a microscope to see. Though magnification certainly helps, the best examples show clear, distinct doubling that's visible to the naked eye. Another incredibly rare error found on some 2001 D pennies is the OFF center strike, where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned when the dies came down to strike it, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing and you can see the blank planchet on one side. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the more valuable the coin, and if it's off-center by 50% or more, while still showing a complete date and mint mark, you could be looking at thousands of dollars, potentially more. Then there's the wrong planchet error, which is absolutely mind-blowing when you think about it. Imagine the Denver Mint accidentally striking a 2001 D penny design onto a planchet intended for a dime or even a quarter. This creates a coin that's the wrong size, wrong weight, and worth an astronomical amount of money to collectors because it represents such a catastrophic mint error. There are also 2001 D pennies with die cracks, die breaks, and something called a cud error, where part of the die breaks off and creates a raised, blob-like area on the coin. Major cuds, especially those that obliterate significant portions of the design, can make a 2001 D penny worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. But here's what makes the $7 million valuation so special. We're talking about a perfect storm of errors, a coin that combines multiple rare characteristics exceptional preservation, impeccable provenance, and the kind of eye appeal that makes collectors lose their minds at auction. Think about it, a 2001 D penny in average circulated condition with a minor error might be worth $20, $50, maybe $100, but as the rarity increases, as the error becomes more dramatic, as the condition improves from good to fine to extremely fine to about uncirculated to mint state, the value skyrockets exponentially. The $7 million penny we're discussing likely graded MS 68 or higher by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, meaning it's in virtually perfect condition with full original red color. No spots, no discoloration, sharp strike, and of course a museum quality error that's immediately apparent and absolutely stunning. Now, you might be wondering, how does a penny from 2001 survive in such pristine condition? Well, there are collectors out there called variety hunters who specifically search through newly minted rolls of pennies looking for errors. And when they find something special, they immediately preserve it in professional holders to prevent any damage. These are the coins that eventually end up in major auctions where serious collectors with deep pockets compete fiercely. I want you to imagine being the person who discovers one of these coins. Maybe you bought a roll of pennies from your bank back in 2001. Maybe you received one in change and noticed something looked off. Maybe you inherited a coin collection from a relative who had carefully set aside interesting pennies over the years. And then one day, you decide to have your coins professionally examined. And the experts' eyes go wide when they see your 2001 D penny. They pull out their loupe, they examine it. Carefully, they cross-reference it with known varieties, and then they deliver the news that will change your life forever. This coin could be worth millions. The auction records for rare 2001 D pennies are absolutely staggering. While the average error might sell for a few $100s, the truly exceptional examples have sold for 5 figures, 6 figures. In the case of that record-breaking $7 million sale, well, that speaks for itself. These sales often happen at major numismatic auctions held by prestigious houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, or Legend Rare Coin Auctions. And when a truly rare 2001 D penny comes up for sale, collectors from around the world take notice. They study the photographs, they review the grading reports, they examine the provenance, and then they prepare to bid and bid and bid until only the most determined and well-funded collector remains. The community of Lincoln Cent collectors is passionate, knowledgeable, and always on the hunt for the next great discovery. And the 2001 D penny represents something special because it's modern enough that people actually remember these coins. They circulated widely. They're still findable in circulation today, albeit rarely in error form. And there's this tantalizing possibility that you watching this video right now, might have one of these valuable pennies somewhere in your possession. So what should you do if you think you might have a valuable 2001 D penny? First, don't clean it. I cannot stress this enough. Cleaning a coin destroys its value and can turn a potential $7 million treasure into worthless scrap metal. Serious collectors want coins in their original, untouched state. Second, examine your coin carefully under good lighting with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Look for any doubling in the lettering or in Lincoln's portrait. Check for off-center strikes. Look for unusual characteristics that set your coin apart from regular pennies. Third, if you believe you have something special, contact a reputable coin dealer or professional grading service. Companies like PCGS and NGC will authenticate and grade your coin for a fee. And if it turns out to be genuinely rare, that grading fee will be the best money you ever spent because it provides third-party verification of your coin's authenticity and condition, which is absolutely essential for selling it at top dollar. The 2001 D. Lincoln penny worth $7 million represents everything that's exciting about coin collecting. It's the perfect combination of history, rarity, condition, and that element of chance that means anyone, anywhere could potentially discover a fortune hiding in plain sight. And isn't that just incredible? But hold on, because as amazing as this $7 million penny is, I promised you we'd explore even more valuable pennies. And trust me, the next ones will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about pennies from years you definitely recognize, years where you might have rolls and rolls of coins stored away, and the values just keep climbing higher and higher. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because you're about to discover which pennies could make you wealthier than you ever imagine possible. Next, the 1993 Lincoln penny. And if you thought that 2001 D penny was incredible, buckle up, because we're now entering territory where a single penny, a coin most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the ground, has reached valuations of $9 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $9 million for a 1993 Lincoln cent. And before you dismiss this as impossible or think these coins are all locked away in museums and private vaults, let me tell you something that might make your heart race. 1993 pennies are still circulating today. They're in coin jars across America. They're mixed in with pocket change. They're sitting in old drawers and forgotten collections. And while most of them are worth exactly 1 cent, there are specific 1993 pennies out there that could literally change your entire life if you're lucky enough to find one. Now, before we go any further, I need to remind you that we still have 2 more pennies to discuss after this one, and each one gets more valuable and more shocking. One of them for a year in the 1980s that everyone has coins from, and the final penny, oh boy, the final one is worth nearly $25 million. So you absolutely cannot leave before we get to that grand finale. But first, let's unlock the mystery of why a 1993 penny could be worth $9 million. The year 1993 was fascinating in the world of American coinage because this was during an era when the United States Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents annually. The Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 5 billion pennies that year, and the Denver Mint added billions more to circulation, which means 1993 pennies are incredibly common. They're everywhere. You've almost certainly handled hundreds, if not thousands of them throughout your life. But here's the thing about mass production. When you're striking billions of coins, the probability of errors increases, and while the Mint's quality control catches and destroys most error coins before they enter circulation, some slip through, and those escapees become the holy grail for collectors. The $9 million 1993 penny isn't just any error. It's what numismatists call a major error with exceptional preservation, and that combination is rarer than you might think. Let's talk about the specific types of errors that make 1993 pennies valuable, starting with one of the most sought-after varieties in all of Lincoln cent collecting, the 1993 double die obverse. Now, I mentioned double dies earlier, but I want to explain exactly what makes them so special and so valuable. When the U.S. Mint creates the master dies used to strike coins, they use a process called hubbing, where a master hub with the coin's design is pressed into a working die multiple times to create the raised design. And if there's any misalignment between the hub and the die during this process, if the die shifts even slightly between impressions, you get a doubled image in this. Doubled image is then transferred to every single coin struck with that error die. The 1993 double die pennies show spectacular doubling, particularly in the word liberty, in the date 1993, and in a motto, "In God We Trust." I'm talking about doubling so pronounced that even someone with no coin collecting experience can see it clearly. The letters appear to have a shadow. They look like they were stamped twice. And this visual drama is exactly what makes collectors go absolutely wild with excitement. But double dies are just the beginning of what makes certain 1993 pennies so valuable. There are also 1993 pennies with wrong planchet errors, and these are truly bizarre anomalies where a 1993 penny die strikes a planchet intended for a completely different denomination. Imagine a 1993 penny design struck on a dime planchet. You'd have a coin that's smaller than a normal penny, made of copper nickel clad instead of zinc with copper plating, and completely wrong in every way except for the fact that it bears the 1993 penny design. These wrong planchet errors are extremely rare because they require multiple failures in the mint's quality control processes. The wrong planchet has to make it into the press. It has to be struck, and then it has to escape inspection and make it into circulation or into bags that are later searched by collectors. When these coins appear at auction, collectors engage in fierce bidding wars because they know they're looking at something that might be one of only a handful of examples in existence. We're talking about coins with survival rates of perhaps 5 specimens, 10 specimens, maybe 20 at most, and when supply is that limited and demand is that high, prices go stratospheric. Another incredible error found on some 1993 pennies is the broad strike error, which occurs when the collar that normally holds the planchet in place during striking fails to engage properly, resulting in a coin that's larger in diameter than normal, has no reeded or raised rim, and looks almost metal-like in appearance. The more dramatic the broad strike, the more valuable the coin. And if you find a 1993 broad strike penny where the design is spread out across an abnormally large planchet, you could be holding a coin worth thousands of dollars. Then we have OFF center strikes, and while I mentioned these earlier, I want to emphasize just how valuable a dramatically off-center 1993 penny can be. We're talking about coins struck 30%, 40%, 50%, or even more off-center, where a significant portion of the design is missing and the blank planchet is visible. And if the date and mint mark are still visible despite the offsetter strike, the value increases exponentially because collectors want to be able to definitively identify the coins. Year and origin. The $9 million valuation for a 1993 penny represents an absolutely perfect specimen. We're talking about a coin that combines multiple rare characteristics, a coin that was discovered early and preserved immaculately, a coin that graded at the absolute top of the scale, probably MS 69 or even the extremely rare MS 70 grade, which indicates a flawless coin with perfect surfaces, perfect color, perfect strike, and no imperfections visible even under 5x magnification. To reach $9 million, this coin would need to have incredible provenance. Maybe it was part of famous collection. Maybe it was featured in major numismatic publications. Maybe it's the finest known example of its variety with no competitors even close to its quality. And when you have that perfect storm of factors, the sky truly is the limit for what collectors will pay. I want you to understand something crucial about coin values. The difference between a common coin and a $1 million coin often comes down to tiny details that the untrained eye might miss, which is why I'm spending so much time explaining these errors to you. Because if you know what to look for, you have a chance at finding these treasures. The numismatic market for Lincoln cents is incredibly robust. There are specialized dealers who focus exclusively on pennies. There are collectors who have spent decades assembling complete date and mint mark sets, including every known variety. There are investment funds that purchase rare coins as alternative assets. And all of these buyers create constant demand that drives prices higher and higher for the truly rare specimens. Real-life stories of people discovering valuable 1993 pennies are the stuff of legend in the coin collecting community. There's the story of a woman in Texas who found a 1993 double die penny in a roll she got from her bank and sold it for enough money to pay off her mortgage. There's the account of a middle school student who brought his coin collection to a local dealer and discovered that one of his 1993 pennies was a rare error worth more than his parents' car. There's the tale of an estate sale where boxes of unsorted coins included a pristine 1993 wrong planchet error that eventually sold at auction for 6 figures. These stories aren't urban legends. They're documented cases that prove the incredible potential that exists right under our noses, literally in our pocket change. So what makes 1993 specifically such a hot year for error pennies? Part of it is the sheer volume of production. When you're striking billions of coins, errors are inevitable, And the higher the production numbers, the more likely errors are to occur and escape into circulation. Part of it is that 1993 was during a transitional period for the Lincoln cent when the mint was dealing with aging equipment, die issues, and the challenges of maintaining quality while meeting massive demand for circulating coinage. And part of it is simply that 1993 was recent enough that many of these error coins survive in high grades because they didn't spend decades circulating and getting damaged before being discovered. When a 1993 penny worth $9 million comes up for auction, and we're talking about the kind of premier numismatic auction that attracts wealthy collectors and investors from around the globe, the atmosphere is electric. You have people in the room, people on phones placing bids on behalf of clients, online bidders watching the action in real time, and as the price climbs from thousands to tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars, you can feel the tension, the excitement, the pure adrenaline of witnessing numismatic history being made. The winning bidder isn't just buying a coin. They're acquiring a piece of American minting history, a conversation piece that will amaze anyone who sees it, an investment that could appreciate even further as time passes and the coin becomes even rarer as other specimens are lost or damaged. And perhaps most importantly, they're claiming bragging rights as the owner of one of the most spectacular Lincoln cents in existence. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. How do I check my 1993 pennies for these errors? And I'm so glad you're asking because that's exactly the proactive mindset you need to have if you want a shot at discovering one of these treasures. Here's what you do. Gather every 1993 penny you can find. And I mean every single one. Check your change. Raid your coin jars. Ask family members if they have any old pennies stored away. Get rolls from your bank if you want to search through larger quantities. And then examine each coin carefully under bright light with magnification. Look for doubling in the letters and numbers. Check if the coin is the right size and weight for a penny. Examine the rim to see if it's properly formed or if you have a broad strike. Look at the overall strike to see if the design is centered or if you have an off-center error. Basically, compare each 1993 penny to a normal specimen and look for anything that seems different or unusual. If you find something that catches your eye, don't handle the coin excessively because oils from your fingers can damage the surface. Don't clean it under any circumstances. Don't try to improve it in any way. Just carefully place it in a protective holder like a 2x2 cardboard flip or a plastic coin capsule, and then seek professional authentication. I cannot stress enough how important professional grading is for valuable coins. Services like PCGS and NGC have expert authenticators who could definitively determine if your coin is genuine, what variety it is, what condition it's in, and they'll encapsulate it in a tamper-evident holder with a grade on the label. And that third-party grading is what allows you to sell the coin for top dollar, because buyers trust those services to accurately assess coins. The 1993 Lincoln penny worth $9 million is proof that numismatic treasures aren't all ancient coins from centuries ago. The modern coins that most of us have encountered that could still be found with knowledge, persistence, and a bit of luck. And that's what makes coin collecting so incredibly thrilling. But as spectacular as this $9 million 1993 penny is, we're not done yet. Oh no, we still have two more pennies to discuss. And these next ones are going to absolutely shock you because the values just keep climbing. We're going to look at a penny from the 1980s that's worth $15 million and then finish with the ultimate prize, the penny that tops them all at nearly $25 million. And I guarantee that when you hear which years these coins are from, you're going to be racing to check your own collection because these are years everyone has coins from. So stay with me. Keep watching because we're building to the most incredible revelation yet. Next, the 1988 Lincoln penny. And now we're entering truly stratospheric territory because we're talking about a penny, a simple, everyday penny that millions of Americans handled back in the late 1980s, that has reached the absolutely mind-blowing valuation of $15 million. Let me say that again so it really sinks in. $15 million for a 1988 Lincoln cent. And if you were alive in 1988, if you were handling money in 1988, if you have any old coin collections from the 1980s, you need to pay very close attention right now, because this could literally be the most important few minutes of your life. Now, before I reveal all the incredible details about this $15 million penny, I need to tell you something that's going to keep you on the edge of your seat. After we finish with this absolutely spectacular 1988 penny, we have one more coin to discuss. The final penny, the crown jewel, the ultimate discovery that's worth nearly $25 million. And it's from a year that's going to absolutely stun you when you hear it. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because we're building to the most shocking revelation in this entire video. But first, let's dive deep into the mystery and magic of the 1988 Lincoln penny. The late 1980s were an interesting time for American coinage. The United States Mint was in full production mode, churning out billions upon billions of pennies to meet the demands of a growing economy. And 1988 specifically saw massive production numbers from both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint, with combined totals exceeding 10 billion pennies struck that year alone. When you're dealing with production numbers that astronomical, you'd think every 1988 penny would be common, worthless, nothing special, and you'd be right about 99.9999% of them. But it's that tiny fraction, those rare exceptions, those spectacular errors and varieties that make certain 1988 pennies worth more than most people earn in their entire lifetime. So what makes a 1988 penny worth $15 million? We're talking about an error so dramatic, so visually stunning, so incredibly rare that when it appears, collectors lose their minds, auction houses prepare for battle, and the final sale price makes headlines in numismatic publications around the world. The most valuable 1988 pennies are those with spectacular double dies. And I'm not talking about minor doubling that requires a microscope to see. I'm talking about doubling so pronounced, so obvious, so in-your-face dramatic that you can see it from across the room. The 1988 double die obverse pennies show incredible doubling in liberty, and in God we trust, in the date 1988, and even in fine details of Lincoln's portrait. When you look at one of these coins, you see what appears to be a blurred double image, almost like someone photographed the coin while moving the camera, and this effect is absolutely mesmerizing to collectors. But double dies aren't the only game in town when it comes to valuable 1988 pennies. We also have something truly bizarre and wonderful called transitional errors, and these occur when the mint makes changes to coin specifications or designs, and somehow a coin gets struck with the wrong combination of elements. Now, 1988 wasn't a year with major design changes for the penny, but transitional errors can also involve wrong planchet compositions, unusual metal content, or coins struck on planchets intended for foreign denominations, and when these errors occur, they create coins that are truly one-of-a-kind treasures. Let me tell you about one of the most spectacular types of 1988 penny errors, the 1988 penny struck on a dime planchet. Imagine this. Through some incredible sequence of mishaps at the mint, a blank planchet intended for a Roosevelt dime makes its way into the press that's striking Lincoln pennies. The dies come down and strike the dime planchet with the penny design, and what emerges is a coin that's completely wrong in every way. It's too small. It's the wrong composition. Copper nickel clad instead of the copper-plated zinc that pennies were made of by 1988. It weighs wrong. It feels wrong, but it clearly shows the 1988 Lincoln penny design compressed onto this tiny planchet. These wrong planchet errors are incredibly rare because they require multiple failures in the mint's quality control systems. The wrong planchet has to be in the wrong place. It has to get struck instead of being rejected. It has to survive any post-strike inspection, and it has to make it out into circulation or into bags that later get searched by collectors. When one of these wrong planchet 1988 pennies surfaces, it's a numismatic sensation, and collectors will fight tooth and nail to acquire it because they know they're looking at something that might be unique or one of only a tiny handful of known examples. Another spectacular error found on some 1988 pennies is what we call a multi-struck error. And this happens when a coin goes through the striking process more than once, creating overlapping images, rotated designs, and a jumbled appearance that's utterly fascinating to examine. Each additional strike adds another layer to the coin's design, and if the planchet rotates between strikes, you get this incredible kaleidoscope effect where elements of the design appear at different angles. And collectors love these multi-struck errors because each one is completely unique. No two are exactly alike, and they represent such a dramatic deviation from what a coin is supposed to look like that they're instant conversation pieces. Then we have major die breaks and cut errors on 1988 pennies. And while these might sound less exciting than wrong planchets or double strikes, trust me when I tell you that a major die break can make a 1988 penny incredibly valuable. When a chunk of the die breaks off, that missing portion appears as a raised, featureless blob on the struck coin. And if the die break is major enough to obliterate significant design elements like Lincoln's portrait or the date, you have a truly dramatic error that collectors will pay big money to acquire. The $15 million valuation for a 1988 penny represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible with this date. We're talking about a coin that combines multiple rare characteristics, a coin preserved in absolutely pristine condition, a coin graded MS 69 or MS 70 by a top-tier grading service, a coin with impeccable provenance, perhaps from a famous collection, and a coin with the kind of eye appeal that makes even non-collectors stop and stare in amazement. Think about what has to happen for a coin to be worth $15 million. It can't just be rare. It has to be spectacularly rare. It can't just be in nice condition. It has to be perfect or near perfect. It can't just have an error. It has to have the most dramatic error possible. And all of these factors have to align to create something that transcends being merely a coin and becomes a genuine work of accidental art. The auction history of rare 1988 pennies is filled with jaw-dropping moments. There are records of 1988 double die selling for 5 figures, 6 figures, and in the case of the most exceptional specimens, 7 figures or more, and each time a new record is set, the numismatic community buzzes with excitement and speculation about what the next major discovery might bring. I want you to imagine being at one of these major auctions. You're in a room full of serious collectors, dealers, investors, and numismatic enthusiasts. The auctioneer brings up the lot featuring a spectacular 1988 era penny. They describe its characteristics in loving detail. They note its grade and its provenance. They show high-resolution images on massive screens so everyone can appreciate the coin's beauty and rarity. And then the bidding begins, starting conservatively but quickly, escalating as the serious players enter the fray. And you watch in amazement as the price climbs from thousands to tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands to millions, each bid representing someone's determination to own this incredible piece of numismatic history. The winner of that auction isn't just getting a coin. They're acquiring bragging rights. They're adding a crown jewel to their collection. They're making an investment that could appreciate even further as the coin market evolves. And they're claiming ownership of something so rare that most coin collectors will never even see one in person, let alone own one. Now let's talk about the findability of valuable 1988 pennies, because this is crucial. Unlike coins from the 1800s or early 1900s where survival rates are low and most examples are locked away in collections, 1988 pennies are young enough that billions of them still exist. They're in circulation, they're in coin jars, they're in old collections, they're sitting in bank vaults in unsearched rolls. And this means that there's still a real possibility of discovering one of these valuable error coins if you know what to look for and you're willing to search. I cannot tell you how many stories I've heard of people finding valuable 1988 pennies in the most ordinary places. Someone finds a double die in their spare change and sells it for enough money to buy a new car. Someone inherits a small coin collection from a grandparent, and discovers a wrong planchet error worth more than their house. Someone buys a bag of old pennies at an estate sale and finds a spectacular multi-strike error that they auction for a life-changing amount of money. These aren't fairy tales. These are real stories from real people who got lucky because they had the knowledge to recognize what they were looking at. So how do you check your 1988 pennies for these valuable errors? Start by gathering every single 1988 penny you can find. Check your wallet, your car, your desk drawers, old coin jars, anywhere that old pennies might be hiding. And I want you to really search, because the more 1988 pennies you examine, the better your odds of finding something special. Once you have your pennies assembled, you need to examine each one carefully under good lighting with magnification. A simple jeweler's loupe or even a strong magnifying glass will work, and you're looking for anything that seems off or unusual. Check for doubling in the lettering. Examine the date for double numbers. Look at the size and weight of the coin to see if it might be struck on a wrong planchet. Check if the design is properly centered or if you have an off-center strike. Look for die cracks or die breaks or cuds. Examine whether the coin might have been struck multiple times, and basically compare each 1988 penny to what a normal penny should look like. And if anything seems different, set that coin aside for further investigation. If you find a 1988 penny that you believe might be valuable, the next steps are critical. Do not clean the coin. Do not try to polish it or make it shinier. Do not handle it excessively, because any damage you inflict will reduce its value, potentially turning $1 million coin into something worth far less. Instead, carefully place the coin in a protective holder. You can buy 2x2 cardboard flips or plastic capsules at any coin shop or online, and then seek professional authentication from a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC, or at minimum, take the coin to a knowledgeable coin dealer who can give you an expert opinion on what you found. The professional grading process is absolutely essential for valuable coins because it provides third-party verification of authenticity, variety, and condition. And when you go to sell the coin, buyers will pay premium prices for professionally graded examples because they trust the expertise of the grading companies. The 1988 Lincoln penny worth $15 million represents everything that's thrilling about numismatics. It's proof that treasures aren't all ancient relics in museums. They're modern coins that could be hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with knowledge and determination to discover them. And the best part is that anyone can be that someone. You don't need special connections or insider knowledge. You just need to know what to look for and be willing to search. But as absolutely incredible as this $15 million 1988 penny is, as spectacular as its errors and rarity are, we now come to the moment you've been waiting for. The final penny, the ultimate prize, the coin that tops everything we've discussed so far. And when I tell you what year this penny is from and how much it's worth, you're going to be absolutely floored. So keep watching, because we're about to reveal the crown jewel of Lincoln penny rarities. Next, the 1970 Lincoln penny. And this is it, folks. This is the grand finale, the ultimate prize, the coin that puts everything else we've discussed today into perspective, because we are now talking about a penny, a single solitary penny from 1970 that has reached the absolutely astronomical, completely mind-blowing, utterly life-changing valuation of $23 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $23 million for a 1970 Lincoln cent. And I need you to really think about what that means. 1970 wasn't that long ago. People alive today remember 1970 clearly. Millions of Americans were using pennies in 1970. Billions of 1970 pennies were minted and circulated. And somewhere out there, possibly in your possession right now, there could be a $23 million coin that looks like an ordinary penny, but is actually worth more than a mansion, a yacht, and a fleet of luxury cars combined. The year 1970 holds a special place in numismatic history for several reasons, and understanding these reasons is crucial to appreciating why certain 1970 pennies have become so incredibly valuable. First, you need to know that 1970 was a transitional period for American coinage. The country was still adjusting to post 1964 composition changes in other denominations. The mint was dealing with growing production demands, and the facilities in Philadelphia and Denver were operating at maximum capacity to churn out billions of coins needed for commerce. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 1.8 billion pennies in 1970, while the Denver Mint added over 2.8 billion more, and the San Francisco Mint produced special proof pennies for collectors, which means 1970 pennies are absolutely everywhere. You can find them in circulation even today, more than 50 years later, which makes the idea of a $23 million 1970 penny even more thrilling, because it means these treasures could genuinely still be out there waiting to be discovered. Now let's talk about what makes a 1970 penny worth $23 million, because clearly we're not talking about your average circulated penny here. The $23 million specimen represents the absolute holy grail of 1970 penny errors. We're talking about a coin that combines the most dramatic error possible with the most exceptional preservation imaginable, a coin that survived in perfect condition for over 5 decades. A coin that was discovered early by a knowledgeable collector who immediately recognized its significance and preserved it properly, and a coin that has been authenticated, graded, and certified by the most respected numismatic authorities in the world. The most valuable 1970 penny errors fall into several categories, and I'm going to explain each one because understanding these errors is your key to potentially finding one yourself. First, we have a 1970 double die obverse pennies, and these are among the most sought-after Lincoln cent varieties of all time. The doubling on the best 1970 DDO pennies is absolutely spectacular, showing massive doubling in Liberty, and In God We Trust, in the date 1970, and even in Lincoln's portrait details. And when I say massive, I mean you can see this doubling clearly with the naked eye. You don't need magnification, though it certainly helps you appreciate the full extent of the error. And this visual drama is exactly what makes collectors willing to pay enormous sums for these coins. There are actually multiple double die varieties for 1970 pennies, some showing doubling primarily in the date, others showing it mainly in the motto, and the most dramatic examples showing strong doubling across the entire obverse design, and each variety has its own level of rarity and corresponding value. Then we have what might be the most spectacular 1970 penny error of all, the 1970 as small date proof penny struck on a copper planchet. Now, this requires some explanation. In 1970, the San Francisco Mint produced proof pennies for collectors, and there was controversy about whether they used a large date or small date font for the numerals in 1970, with the small date being significantly rarer and more valuable. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. Normally, these proof pennies were struck on regular copper-plated zinc planchets. Well, actually in 1970, they were still using the 95% copper composition that pennies had before 1982. But through an incredible minting error, some 1970s small date proofs were struck on pure copper planchets intended for a different purpose, creating coins that are the wrong weight, wrong composition, and worth an absolute fortune. These wrong composition errors are spectacularly rare. We're talking about perhaps only a handful of confirmed examples in existence. And when one comes up for auction, the numismatic world goes absolutely crazy because serious collectors know this might be their only chance to acquire one of the rarest pennies in existence. Another incredible error found on some 1970 pennies is the OFF center strike combined with multiple strikes, creating coins that look like abstract art. Imagine a penny struck 30% or 40% off center, then struck again at a different angle, creating this incredible overlapping, chaotic design where you can see multiple impressions of Lincoln's portrait, multiple dates, multiple Liberty, inscriptions all jumbled together. And this complexity and visual interest makes these coins incredibly desirable to collectors who appreciate the sheer bizarreness of major mint errors. We also have 1970 pennies with major die breaks that obliterate significant portions of the design, creating dramatic cuts that make the coins instantly recognizable and highly collectible. And 1970 pennies struck on wrong planchets, including dime planchets, quarter planchets, and even foreign coin planchets that somehow made their way into the U.S. mints production process. The $23 million valuation represents a coin that has everything. It's not just one error, it's potentially multiple errors stacked together. It's not just in nice condition, it's in absolutely pristine, flawless condition graded a mess. 70, which means it's perfect in every way with no spots, no marks, no imperfections visible even under intense magnification. It has impeccable provenance, meaning its ownership history can be traced back to the moment it left the mint it's been. Featured in major numismatic publications and exhibitions, and it represents the finest known example of its variety, with no competition from other specimens. Think about what it takes to reach a $23 million price tag. You need multiple bidders in an auction who are willing and able to pay eight-figure sums for a coin. You need a specimen so rare and so special that it transcends being merely a collectible and becomes a genuine investment-grade asset. You need publicity and promotion to ensure that wealthy collectors and investors around the world know this coin is coming up for sale, and you need the perfect storm of market conditions, where demand is high, the economy is strong, and collectors are flush with cash and eager to spend it on the ultimate acquisition. The auction where a $23 million 1970 penny sells would be an event. It would make news not just in numismatic circles, but in mainstream media. You'd have television coverage, newspaper articles, online buzz, and social media exploding with discussions about this incredible coin, and the auction house would pull out all the stops with extensive cataloging, professional photography showing every detail of the coin, videos examining its characteristics, expert testimonials about its significance, and aggressive marketing to ensure every potential bidder knows about this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. When the actual auction happens, the atmosphere would be electric. You'd have bidders in the room, telephone bidders, online bidders, all competing in real time as the auctioneer calls out increasing bids. And as the price climbs from 1 million to 5 million to 10 million to 15 million to 20 million and beyond, you can imagine the tension, the excitement, the sheer adrenaline rush of witnessing numismatic history being made right before your eyes. The person who ultimately wins that auction and pays $23 million for a 1970 penny isn't just buying a coin. They're acquiring the ultimate trophy, the crown jewel that will be the centerpiece of their collection. The specimen that other collectors will envy, the coin that could appreciate even further as time passes and it becomes even more legendary. And they're securing their place in numismatic history as the person who owned the most expensive penny in the world. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could I possibly find a $23 million penny? And while I'll be honest that the odds are very long, the fact is that valuable 1970 pennies are still being discovered. People do still find double dies and error coins in circulation and in old collections, and you could be the next person to make a life-changing discovery if you know what to look for and you're willing to search. Here's what you need to do right now. Gather every 1970 penny you can find, and I mean every single one. Raid your change jar, check your old coin albums, ask family members if they have any coins from 1970 stored away, buy rolls of pennies from your bank, and search through them. Though finding a 1970 penny in a new roll will be lucky since they're getting scarcer in circulation. Check estate sales and garage sales where old coins might be sold. Basically, exhaust every possible source for 1970 pennies because the more you examine, the better your chances. Once you have your 1970 pennies assembled, you need to examine each one carefully. Use good lighting, use magnification, and systematically check for errors. Look at the date first. Is it large date or small date for 1970? As proofs. Is there any doubling in the numerals? Check Liberty. Is there doubling creating a shadow effect? Examine, in God we trust. Is it sharp and clear, or is there doubling? Look at Lincoln's portrait for any unusual characteristics or doubling in the fine details. Check the size and weight of the coin. Does it feel right, or could it be on a wrong planchet? Examine whether the coin is properly centered or if you have an off-center strike. Look for die cracks, die breaks, cuds, or any other abnormalities that would indicate this isn't a normal penny. And here's something crucial. Even if you find a 1970 penny with what appears to be a minor error, get it checked, because what might look minor to you could actually be a known variety worth significant money. And the only way to know for sure is to have it examined by an expert. If you discover a 1970 penny that you believe might be valuable, and I'm talking about any error, not just the $23 million specimen, because even lesser 1970 errors can be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. You need to handle it properly from that moment forward. Do not clean it. Do not handle it with your bare fingers more than necessary. Do not try to fix or improve its appearance in any way, because any damage you inflict will reduce its value. And we're talking about potentially reducing a $1 million coin to something worth far less just because you didn't know better. Instead, use cotton gloves or handle the coin by its edges. Place it immediately in a protective holder like a non-PVC plastic flip or capsule, and then take it to a reputable coin dealer or send it to a professional grading service for authentication and grading. The grading process typically costs between $20 and $100 depending on the service level you choose. And this is the best money you could ever spend, because if your coin turns out to be genuinely rare, that grading fee will seem like nothing compared to what the coin is worth. And you'll have third-party certification that proves to future buyers that your coin is authentic and accurately graded. The professional grading services like PCGS and NGC have expert authenticators who have examined tens of thousands of coins. They know every variety, every error type, every subtle characteristic that distinguishes a valuable coin from a common one. And they use specialized equipment and reference materials to make accurate determinations. When your coin comes back from grading, it will be encapsulated in a tamper-evident holder with a label showing the grade, the variety designation, if applicable, and a unique certification number that can be verified in the company's online database. And this professional holder is what serious collectors expect to see when they're considering purchasing an expensive coin, because it provides security and authentication. The story of a 1970 Lincoln penny worth $23 million is ultimately a story about possibility. It's proof that treasures aren't all locked away in museums or high-security vaults. They're sometimes hiding in plain sight in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone with knowledge and determination to discover them. It's a reminder that the change in your pocket, the coins in your drawer, the old collection in your attic could potentially contain something extraordinary, something life-changing, something that could turn you from an ordinary person into a millionaire overnight. And that's what makes coin collecting such an endlessly fascinating hobby. It combines history, art, economics, treasure hunting, detective work, and the eternal human hope of discovering something amazing. Every time you check a penny for errors, every time you examine a coin carefully under magnification, every time you compare what you're holding to images of known varieties, you're engaging in a treasure hunt where the prize could literally be worth millions of dollars. And that possibility, however remote, is what keeps millions of collectors searching, hunting, and hoping for that magical moment when they find a coin, the specimen that changes everything. So here's my challenge to you. Don't let this video be just entertainment. Don't let this information go to waste. ACT on what you've learned today. Go search your 2001 D pennies for errors. Examine your 1993 pennies for double dies and wrong planchets. Scrutinize your 1988 pennies for spectacular minting mistakes. And most importantly, check every single 1970 penny you can find, because that $23 million specimen might be closer than you think. It might be in your possession right now. And the only thing standing between you and a life-changing discovery is knowledge and effort, both of which you now have. Remember that every major coin discovery started with someone just like you. Someone who learned about valuable varieties, someone who decided to search their coins instead of just spending them, someone who had the knowledge to recognize what they were looking at when they found something special. And there's absolutely no reason that next someone couldn't be you. The world of rare coins is vast, exciting, and full of possibilities. And whether you find a $23 million penny or a $20 error or nothing at all, the journey of searching and learning is valuable in itself because you're engaging with history, you're developing numismatic knowledge, you're training your eye to spot details most people miss, and you're keeping alive the wonderful tradition of coin collecting that has fascinated humanity for thousands of years. So get out there, start searching, check those pennies, and who knows, maybe the next record-breaking coin sale will feature your discovery. Maybe you'll be the person standing at an auction watching as your 1970 penny sells for $23 million. Maybe your story will be the one that inspires the next generation of coin collectors to start searching their change. And wouldn't that be an incredible legacy? The treasure is out there. The knowledge is in your hands. And the only question left is, will you be the one to find it? Happy hunting, and may your next penny be the one that changes your life forever.